And welcome into Time Out with the Guys. I am Brad Burton. This is Carter Foley. Well, it's been another hectic week of sports, as we all know, with the NFL. More COVID positive tests have appeared, especially with one particular big name player, Cam Newton. And now today, of course, we find out that another Patriots player, Stephon Gilmore, has now tested positive for the coronavirus. And, well, I know we talked about, back in the spring, summertime, that come weeks 4 and 5, this was going to be an issue. And it is not only an issue, it's a major issue.
No.
This has been a problem that has just no doubt been on a lot of people's minds throughout training camp, going into week 1. Things look to be okay. Week 2 also appeared to be okay. Come week 3, some players I know for the Atlanta Falcons, AJ Terrell tested positive for COVID, and he has not played since. But then in weeks 4, we saw the Titans Steelers going to get postponed, and now here we are going into week 5, starting tomorrow night with the Bears and Buccaneers. This has really just been there's a lot of things I want to say, but I probably shouldn't say because there's just so much on my mind right now. But when you look at Cam Newton testing positive for COVID, no doubt this is a big blow to the Patriots. And not just to the Patriots, but also to the league as well, because we saw back in March where Rudy Gobert, with the NBA, Utah Jazz tested positive for COVID. And right then, that just shut down the league for many months. The NFL, though, they have just kind of gone forward and stuff. But as a fan of football, I would hate to see the sport be shut down. But at the end of the day, though, you have to do what's best for the players, for the team itself, and to just continue to go through with it, because now we're starting to see more teams be affected with the virus. Of course, now with the Patriots being affected with 2 players, who knows how many more players could have the virus inside of them. And now with the Titans themselves, this is just really getting out of control now. And for me, Roger Goodell, he's done nothing about it so far. I get it. They're punishing teams for not wearing masks on the sideline. Coaches are getting fined so far. We saw that there in the first few weeks of the season. But I think it'll take more than just punishing teams, really.
Yeah, it's been obviously, like you mentioned, we kind of talked about week 4, week 5. I think that's when we were really going to start to see some cases. Obviously, it's October now. It's almost, kind of flu season as it is every year. And with COVID-19, it just makes it obviously a lot worse. So, I definitely think, we've talked about it too, how a bubble works, but obviously with the NFL, there's just so many players, so many, coaches, so many team personnel, and to keep all those guys in one area is honestly unrealistic. Maybe for the playoffs, they can definitely consider that, kind of like how baseball did. That might be an option too, and especially if there's really going to be no fans. Having it in a neutral location really shouldn't make that big of a difference, no matter what. And maybe, obviously the NFL can give home field advantage by implementing loud crowd noises, things like that. So obviously that's a few months away from the playoffs, and we'll see what happens if the season is still going on at that point. And like you mentioned, I think Roger Goodell, obviously, he's implemented basically, having, giving large fines for teams and coaches not wearing masks. And I understand that's definitely a good first step, but I think there definitely needs to be a lot more restrictions for the players and the coaches, to allow them to, not just be able to go out and do whatever they want. And I know obviously last week the Raiders actually got in trouble for going to an event and they didn't wear masks, and then they had a couple of positives as well. So, it's just a lot of guidelines that need to be implemented by the commissioner. He's making $40 million a year, right? So he really needs to start doing some extra steps. Otherwise, the season's going to be in jeopardy. As obviously we're going to talk about in a little bit, the Titans and the Buffalo Bills are obviously having some issues as well. Because of the Titans getting more positive tests today. So it's a really big issue. They really got to figure it out. I feel bad for the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, they didn't get to play last week. They had to move their bye week to week 4, which seems pretty early.
Very early.
Now, you ask yourself, are they going to have to forfeit or what? But, obviously a lot of COVID positive tests, and it's just not looking good right now for the league.
That's the thing there, too, is if you had to keep postponing games and stuff, because that's not only affecting your schedule, but it's affecting the other team's schedules as well. And that's not fair to them. They've been responsible throughout this whole thing. But And I'm not saying to the Titans they haven't been, they haven't been responsible because of COVID. It's just this thing is so unpredictable, so we don't know what's going to happen with it. But before we get into that, let's just get into the Chiefs and Patriots. Obviously, this is no doubt one of the biggest games this week. This game was supposed to be played on Sunday at 3:25, but then of course with Cam Newton testing positive, and the Patriots had to rearrange their plan stuff because obviously they had to fly to Kansas City in order to play this game, but it just was not going to happen on Saturday. And then so they moved the game to Monday night. But so Brian Hoyer did start for the Patriots, and he just did not look really good at all. Patrick Mahomes was just, he looked really good a lot of the time, but of course there were times though where he did struggle. And I get it, when your schedule gets kind of screwed up and stuff, you have to rearrange your plans, and that can kind of affect it. But Chiefs offense still looking pretty good though throughout the game. Early on, they were really just throwing the football pretty well, running the football with no problem, and eventually Brian Hoyer did get benched after he was just, like I said, really struggling. Did throw a pick there, and Jarrett Stidham, who of course was talked about, would he become the starter for the Patriots this year before Cam Newton officially signed on with them after being a free agent for several months after being cut by the Carolina Panthers. And for the Chiefs, they moved to 4-0 on the season. Patriots dropped to 2-2. Of course, I can't remember the last time the Patriots being 2-2. They've always seemed to be that team that starts off, 3-1, 4-1. So if they get their second loss, it's not till about week 8 or 9. Of course, the Patriots have been such a dominant team throughout their entire history there with Bill Belichick, and of course when Tom Brady was there as well. But I'll tell you what though, the Patriots though, they gave all they had. I know towards the end the score may not reflect that they didn't play hard enough, but they did everything that they could. Jarrett Stidham, like I mentioned, he did come in to replace Brian Hoyer, and at times he did look sharp. I can kind of tell though he was a little bit rusty. Of course, here's a guy who was drafted I believe back in 2019, so he's obviously still trying to get the hang of it. And of course, when you don't have any preseason games to play, kind of show what you can do, when you kind of get thrown in there, there's no doubt going to be some struggles, and that's what he definitely showed. But overall though, I think for the Patriots, a loss to the Super Bowl champions. Of course, hey, no doubt, of course, if Tom Brady was still there, this would be a possible AFC Championship matchup, and it still could be. Who knows what the Patriots could do? Obviously, with Cam Newton being out with COVID still, we'll see what happens with that. But overall, though, for the Patriots, tough loss for them. Chiefs, though, just continuing to win. Of course, when you come off a Super Bowl championship, people wondering, is that hangover going to be affecting them throughout the season or going into next season, I should say. But for the Chiefs, though, they have no problem at all. They're just continuing to dominate, and that's what they did on Monday night.
Yeah, I think obviously this definitely would have been a different outcome if Cam Newton was playing. I definitely think the Patriots would have won. I think their defense was doing a pretty good job. It was the offense that was a little sluggish to me, and obviously that was because Cam Newton wasn't playing. And Brian Hoyer just obviously did not look so good in this game, like you mentioned. I think there's just too many mistakes that he made, and that's why Stidham ultimately got to take over for him. And he looked good, but I think he still obviously needs a little bit more experience. And I think maybe to just kind of watch Cam for, maybe a few more years, because I think Cam is going to be the guy moving forward. Obviously, when he gets back and healthy, he's definitely going to be the guy long term. But, there's still kind of an experiment for the Patriots to kind of mess around with their quarterbacks against the Super Bowl champions. So, obviously, I also think, too, that the Chiefs, they needed to make plays when they needed to make plays. I thought it was pretty much back and forth through maybe, the first half and maybe even going into the third quarter, obviously looking at the score of 3-6 until the very end of the third quarter. So obviously there was it was kind of a slugfest, I should say. But ultimately, I definitely think these two teams will probably meet again in the playoffs if I were to imagine. And hopefully by then Cam Newton's back, and it's going to be more of a matchup than it was this time.
I know last week we were talking about Cam Newton kind of being not just this rental player for the year for the Patriots, but possibly being the future and stuff. Of course, he is 31 years old, so he's not the young player he once was. But certainly, though, he could play till, I assume he's about maybe 36, 37 years old, maybe even a couple years beyond that. Of course, playing till 40, who knows what's going to happen with all the injuries that he's had. No doubt about the body for Cam Newton has already been kind of wear and tear in some areas. And, of course, now with having COVID, who knows what's going to happen with that. But I'm sure Cam will no doubt be okay. They, of course, in sports, athletes no doubt get a lot of good medical treatment and stuff whenever they're hurt, not feeling so good. So I would assume Cam Newton is going to be fine. Of course, with COVID, this is a very serious problem. So you never want to take this virus. You don't ever want to underestimate it, is what I'm saying. But Of course, going into the game and stuff, when Cam Newton was not going to play, people were saying for Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham, this could be their audition to take over the starting job. But certainly on Monday night, that was not shown by either of those guys. I do think Stidham does have a shot. Who knows what's going to happen maybe down the road for years to come. But like I said, Cam Newton, he could be the Patriots' future for quite some time. So we'll see what happens with that. I definitely think he can strive there in Bill Belichick's system. And I definitely think with a guy like Cam Newton, he's an MVP. He's been to the Super Bowl. He's a proven winner in some areas. I still think, of course, even at 31 years old, still has some room for improvement. But I do think going to the Patriots, he's in a much better system than when he was in Carolina. Of course, in Carolina, he had Ron Rivera there as his head coach, but Ron Rivera being a defensive-minded guy, but still, though, just having those guys there. But I think Cam Newton being in New England is the best fit for him right now at this point in his career. So we'll see what happens with that. But, of course, today we found out that Stephon Gilmore, Patriots cornerback, did test positive for COVID, like I mentioned there early on. And he did come in close contact there with Patrick Mahomes. Those two, they gave a high five, a little hug at the end of the game like they always do, post-game wise. And that just, of course, if you're a Chiefs fan, which we do know some pretty diehard Chiefs fans out there, that has to concern you. Even as us, I'm still concerned about, because Patrick Mahomes, no doubt, he is the best active quarterback out there right now. Obviously, of course, with Russell Wilson being one of the other top guys as well. But this could be very serious for him. When you come in close contact with somebody that tests positive for COVID, they say you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. You have to quarantine. So what's going to happen now is what I'm wondering with Patrick Mahomes and the entire Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, not just Patrick Mahomes was getting in close contact with him, but the receivers, Tyreek Hill, playing the game and stuff. So there's just a lot of things right now that the NFL. Now, again, I'm not saying this is all on them, of course, for Stephon Gilmore getting the coronavirus, but they had so much time to figure something out. I get it. A bubble is probably not going to happen. It's just not realistic with so many teams, so many players on each team. With the NBA, it's a bit easier. You only have 12 players, I think, at the max, maybe 15, whatever it is, and you're able to insert you're able to insert a bubble right there. But Roger Goodell and the NFL, they had so much time, and they did not do anything about it. Yes, the draft went virtual and stuff, which turned out really great, by the way. But I think they just kind of waited this whole thing out, and they're like, okay, maybe COVID will be gone by late summertime. We can get back to somewhat normalcy. And unfortunately, we're still what we were back in March. And like you said, will the season will it get called off sometime this season? It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't. Yeah. It would suck. But at the end, you have to do what's best for the teams and the players.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I mean, like we mentioned, a lot more players are now getting this virus. Obviously, every week, it's teams traveling to different parts of the USA, playing other teams, going back home to their families, maybe, being exposed to somebody in their household with COVID-19 and not even realizing it, bringing it back to the facility. There's just a lot of things that you can't control when there's that many individuals. And again, that's why we give so much credit to the NBA, NHL, and I would say now the MLB for now having for having a bubble format. And I really do hope that when the postseason comes around, because I would love to see postseason football take place if it does get to that point, and I definitely think they should do a bubble. I mean, there wouldn't be as many teams. You could probably keep them all in a hotel or do something like that. It's a lot of things that are kind of uncertain, but they would have to figure that out. But I definitely think it would be worth the risk of having all those guys. And I know the Players Union has already discussed that they don't want to be in a bubble, and I think there has to be a little bit of give and take in this if you really do want to finish the season, because I think that's ultimately what it's going to require from both sides. So obviously it's not looking good so far. Obviously it's good that nobody's been seriously sick or even had to go to the hospital as of yet. And you hope for those older coaches as well, if they do get it, that they're going to be okay, because obviously they are in the category of getting it. And I was watching Russell Wilson's podcast today, and he was describing kind of what it was like for him to kind of be social distance. And when they're even at practice, when they're not actually doing a play, they're pretty much spread out, talking to each other, communicating with each other. And when he's with the other quarterbacks, They're all spread out. They're talking about game plans, things like that. So I think that's what a lot of teams have to do. And obviously, I don't know what's going on with other 31 organizations around the league, but I think there just needs to be a little bit more caution and care. And no matter what your political beliefs are, I think you really just have to, at the end of the day, protect each other, protect yourself, and wear a mask when you're not on the field, when you're talking to others. I think that's just the smartest thing you can do to prevent an outbreak on your team, as like what we've seen with the Tennessee Titans. They're still having issues, and we're almost at the 2-week mark. So there definitely needs to be some things to sort out. Roger Goodell, we're looking at you. You're the guy in charge. You're getting all the money, man. So you got to figure this out, because otherwise the season's in jeopardy. I truly believe that.
No, you're absolutely right. When you talk about players not wanting to do a bubble and stuff, okay, well, do you want to win a championship or not? Simple as that. And like you said, people bring up politics into this whole deal and stuff about when it comes to wearing a mask. No, it's not about politics at all. We just want to protect ourselves. That way we can try and get back to things a little bit faster than what we want to be. So I don't know. It's just a lot of BS that goes on with people. I get it, though. It's frustrating. But at the end of the day, though, we have to, we will be the reason why we get through this. But if we're not going to follow the rules and stuff, we're not going to follow the protocols, we're going to be in this mess for a little bit longer. And by a bit longer, I mean a lot longer. So we'll see what happens with that. But like talk about more positive cases, too, with the Tennessee Titans. Their game against the Buffalo Bills is in jeopardy, as we know so far. And boy, like I said, if you're the Titans, though, you have to think, though, what's going to happen? Is that game going to be postponed? Are they going to have to reschedule it some way? Because you can't really have a short week. And if you do, it could possibly be a Thursday night matchup, possibly for both teams, which would really be unfortunate for them. So at the end of the day, though, if you're the Tennessee Titans, obviously players have to take measures into their own hands, protect themselves, protect their family, protect their own teammates, coaches, etc. So it's just like we talked about, weeks 4 and 5 comes around. We're going to be dealing with cases, and we have so far, and here we are. And I just don't know what to say about this no more. I mean, Carter, you called it. I agreed with you, and I just don't know what's going to happen now. I just don't know how the season can progress with positive cases. I get it. I think we know kind of how to deal with the virus, but if players are going to keep testing positive, not just from the Titans, but from more teams as well, because we know that teams like the Las Vegas Raiders, they had a charity event, and they went out there, no social distancing going on really, and no wearing masks, and now they're dealing with positive cases as well. So, again, just so much going on right now that we just don't know what's going to happen. And, boy, I'd be amazed if we get through the season without it being postponed or suspended indefinitely, whatever the case may be. So if we do it, that's awesome. But, boy, there's just going to be a lot of more positive cases coming out from a lot of teams, players as well. And, again, it just amazes me how they had so much time to figure something out. I get it. It's going to be challenging, but it's worth the shot, though, to try and make it work. And they didn't do anything about it. So at the end of the day, Roger Goodell, over the years, I've had my thoughts about him. Some days he makes me mad. Some days, it's neutral with him. But we talk about commissioners. Adam Silver has done such a phenomenal job getting the season back on track. I know the NBA Finals ratings have been down recently, but hey, of course, when you start playing in the fall and stuff, you're going to take a hit when they should have been playing back in June, or when they really would have been playing back in June. Of course, you can't be doing that when COVID was still a major issue, still is. But overall, though, Roger Goodell, no doubt, like you said, he makes a lot of money. Man, $40 million. I wish I could make that a year. Heck, I wish I could make $1 million a year. Heck, yeah. 500,000.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's just ridiculous.
It's a lot of money for a guy that doesn't seem to really have it together. I mean, it's on it. Honestly, that's
true.
That's how I feel. I mean, we've seen the outbreaks of what it's been like the last few weeks, and it's been bad. And there's really been no response rather than just, keep the teams out of the practice facility. That's it. So
what's that gonna
I don't know. It's just there's a lot of issues with that, and hopefully he can figure it out, because a lot of those guys will probably be okay, but it's the older coaches, like I mentioned, that I worry about. Obviously, Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick. What if those guys get it?
No, exactly. And no, it's just a lot of things that you have to take in. You have to think about and stuff when you're a person like coach. We know Pete Carroll, he's in his 60s. Andy Reid, he's in his early 60s. Bill Belichick, 60s as well. And no, you're absolutely right. And I think not just for those guys, but for every single coach who knows what this virus really contains of. So anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll get through it one way or the other. If we all get infected with it, well, then, hey, I just don't know. I'm amazed. They had so much time, and they didn't do anything about it. But let's jump into the games, though. Obviously, this week was fulfilled with a lot of fun matchups, no doubt about that. The first game, though, that we want to talk about is the Buffalo Bills and the Las Vegas Raiders. Bills are off to a 4-0 start. That's pretty amazing by them. Josh Allen, like I talked about before, I was a guy who was not really fond of him. I just thought he didn't know. I thought he didn't have what it took to be a quarterback in this league. I thought for him being drafted early on was a bit of a stretch, but every time I say this quarterback's not going to be good, they turn out to be pretty darn good. I mean, Carson Wentz, I was pretty critical of him, but right now, of course, he's been hurt throughout the year. So I'm kind of now sort of being right once again, but who knows what's going to happen with Carson Wentz. Johnny Manziel, I thought, hey, if he can stay out of trouble, he'll be great. But no, I was wrong on that too. But for Buffalo, though, this is a team, no doubt, that even if Tom Brady was still playing for the Patriots, they would be making a lot of noise still, I would think. I know with Tom Brady not being there, it kind of gives them now that edge. Of course, I know the mayor of Buffalo was pretty psyched about Tom Brady not signing on with the Patriots to go to Tampa. I don't blame him. Hey, if Aaron Rodgers leaves the Green Bay Packers, I'll be ecstatic.
Yeah.
But if he goes to the Vikings or Lions, then it's going to be like, well, nothing's really changed.
Hey, maybe the Bears.
Yeah. Hey. I'm actually, I'd be happy with that. But for Buffalo, though, this is a team, no doubt, making the playoffs last year. Even making the playoffs back in 2017. I know 2018 was a bit of a down year for them, but they've been able to get back up and just keep on progressing. No doubt this is a team that's just going to keep on. If they can stay healthy this year, don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but of course Kansas City, you have to get through them in order to get to the Super Bowl. But for Buffalo, though, this is a team, no doubt, I think that's been making a lot of major strides this year. They'll be competing very hard with whoever they play, and right now they're showing that 4-0 start. I'm amazed by that. Josh Allen, just like I said, continues to impress me. I still think he has room to improve, but hey, he's got a good system there. Obviously, Stephon Diggs, who they got from the Vikings in that trade, was a great addition to him. Mm-hmm. I know he's been doing a great job for them, so that's a huge target there for Josh Allen because, hey, if you have good players around you, that's going to make you an even much better player. So, but I think for Josh Allen, though, and the Bills, boy, they are going to be continuing to do great things if they can stay healthy. And for the Raiders, John Gruden, of course, when he became the coach before the 2018 season, 10-year contract, $100 million. I was like, what the hell was that? And still kind of question that, but I mean, hey, whatever. Obviously, the Raiders do what they want to do. They moved to Vegas now, so they're in a good area. Of course, it'll be nice once fans can go to that nice stadium that they have. Boy, that stadium looks very nice. I wish I definitely want to get there in person someday. But overall, though, for the Raiders, tough loss for them, but when you play a team like the Buffalo Bills now, you're definitely going to be in for quite a matchup there. And like I said, for Buffalo, 4-0 start, like I said, they'll continue to make major strides this year if they can stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Buffalo is definitely a team to be reckoned with in the AFC for sure. I think they're definitely in the top three. I would say it's probably, if I were to say right now, probably New England, Kansas City, and then Buffalo. And not that was obviously not in order, but just those are the top three teams in the AFC for me at least.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Josh Allen has really turned into something good. Last year, we kind of were seeing, really good breakthroughs from him, and obviously the Bills kind of have had this identity of defense the last 2-3 years, and they had a really good defense just a few years ago as well, and they kind of still have that identity, which ultimately helps them because we know the best teams in the NFL have good defenses and good offenses. So for them to still have that defensive identity, It's really good. But yeah, Josh Allen has really come alive, and he's been throwing the ball a lot. And like you mentioned, Stephon Diggs, great addition. He had 6 catches for 115 yards on the day against the Raiders, and the Raiders have kind of been rebuilding their defense as well. So and they still put up 30 against them. So I definitely think you got to give credit to Allen, though, just playing out of his mind recently. Played really good against the Rams. We talked about that last week. Had some really good throws. I was watching the highlights. Had some really good throws. Tough throws too, tight windows, and he really just delivered. So he's really coming into a great quarterback. It was a little, like you mentioned, kind of skeptical at first when he first was drafted, but just with time, he's really showed that he is an elite quarterback in this league so far. So definitely hope that he keeps it up, because he's a heck of a quarterback. Buffalo's a really good team. And I'm excited to, watch the matchup when Seattle plays Buffalo in just a few weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's going to be a fun matchup right there. Now on to our next game here. We got the Saints and Lions. Typical Detroit fashion. They started off good, and then they that's what happens to them. New Orleans, though, when they were down 14-0 there in the first quarter, of course, they did get a touchdown there towards the end. And then, of course, they scored 21 points in the second quarter, while Detroit got 0.
Yep.
And New Orleans just kind of ran away with it, although Detroit did try to kind of come back there towards the end, but it was too little too late there for Matthew Stafford and his squad. And I'll tell you what, this Detroit Lions, here's the thing. Matt Patricia needs to go. And we'll get into that here later on. But for Detroit, though, Matthew Stafford, he deserves so much better. He does. He deserves a whole lot better. He's a really good quarterback. I know at times I've been kind of critical of him, saying he's a bit overrated at times, which maybe he is, maybe he's not. But if he was in a system, though, like in Seattle, for example, I think he would strive there very well. I think he really would. You saw what he did with Calvin Johnson there. Those two were phenomenal together. Mm-hmm. And look what happened. Calvin Johnson retires because he's not happy with the team where they're at. The Lions are refusing to do anything with him. They don't want to trade him. Well, guess what? He retires at age 30. Barry Sanders, going all the way back now to the 90s and stuff. He retired early because they did not want to trade him away. Detroit, they need to do a much better job at getting their players happy, making sure that they're in a good environment to be there, that they want to be there. If you're not going to continue to make any major strides this year, or just continue to be a contender in your division, of course players don't want to be there. And look what Detroit's done so far. They have not done that. I'm surprised Stafford hasn't even gotten out of there yet. If he needs to get out of there. Matthew Stafford deserves so much better. And look, for a team that only lost to the Saints by not even less than a touchdown, only by 6 points there. So right there, you get a touchdown, kick the extra point, you win the game right there. Unfortunately, no, for Detroit, that could not happen. And like I said, for the Saints, right now they're 2-2. Michael Thomas still out with injury. Emmanuel Sanders was the big target here for Drew Brees in this game. 93 yards on 6 catches. Drew Brees at times, though, did not look what he once was. But, of course, when he has Michael Thomas there, he's a whole lot better. So I think once Thomas does come back, Drew Brees will start to be kind of light up the stat sheet right there. But like I said, for Matthew Stafford, he deserves so much better.
Yeah, obviously, Lions were off to a really good start, and that's kind of when we were watching the game downstairs, and I was like, oh, man, this is not looking so good for the Saints. But the offense pulled it together. Drew Brees kind of looked like his old self from last year a little bit. Was starting to play a little bit better, but I think, obviously, we have to give a lot of credit to Alvin Kamara. He's just been playing out of his mind the last few weeks. Yeah. Great rusher, also catches the ball, too. He's just kind of that dual threat, kind of player that every team loves to have. Obviously, in Green Bay, they have Aaron Jones. So, when you have a back like that can really just do it all, it really helps, especially when you're missing a key guy like Michael Thomas. And interesting stat too, the Drew Brees was 0-3 without Michael Thomas since he's been, obviously when he was not playing in games. So, since he's been drafted. So this is their first win for Drew Brees without Michael Thomas. So it definitely has to feel good, even if he doesn't come back next week. Hopefully the week after he'll be back. But yeah, obviously Drew Brees is definitely missing, one of the best wide receivers in the game right now. But kind of going back to the Lions, obviously, it does suck for Matthew Stafford. It seems like this is always the kind of the way it goes for the Lions. And I think Matt Patricia too. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I think he's just bringing too much of the Patriot way into the locker room. And I think he just needs to kind of have his own identity in a way, and kind of see what you have, when it comes to players, and kind of go from there. I think he's just trying to do too much of what he did in New England, and I really think he just needs to kind of realize, like, hey, these are different guys. This is a different team. We're going to do our own thing now. So. And obviously he struggled last year, and it looks like it's going to, keep struggling this year. But, still a little bit of the season left. We'll see what happens. But, obviously the Lions are just kind of a team that seems to not really have an identity, which I think, again, is kind of the problem right now.
No, that's always been the problem for Detroit. They don't have a freaking, they don't have a freaking identity, and that's why players want to, leave that organization. I don't blame them too, but that's just how it is for them. But anyway, for the Lions, Matthew Stafford, you deserve better. Maybe Chicago will make a move. No, I'm just kidding. They're probably committed to Nick Foles right now and Mitch Trubisky right now, but we'll see what happens with that. Okay, Chargers, Buccaneers. Boy, this game was also pretty fun to watch too. Justin Herbert, the rookie, who was called upon to start there against the Kansas City Chiefs there in week 2 because Tyrod Taylor got hurt by his own freaking doctor.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's just, I mean, I don't want to say that's a silly injury, but that's be the most pathetic injury that could happen to somebody. You get treatment for a rib injury, and then your lung gets punctured. Just how does that even happen? I don't know. It's so whatever. Yeah. It is what it is at this point. But anyway, Justin Herbert, though, this kid, I should say, he is looking phenomenal so far. I know he's kind of going through his growing pains, which is, of course, how it is for a rookie quarterback, especially when they get called upon to start with only probably 20 minutes to spare before kickoff there against the Super Bowl champions, for God's sakes. But overall, Justin Herbert, I would say he's impressed me so far this season. I've been very impressed by this young man. And for the Chargers, they got a future right now with this guy. I know Phil Rivers, he was a great quarterback for them. And when it was time to move on from him, it was kind of sad because he didn't get to accomplish what he had hoped to there back when he was with San Diego, and then they made the move to Los Angeles. But overall, though, the Chargers, they are in good hands there with Justin Herbert. Although it just wasn't the game that they were hoping to have, they just fell short there to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know for Tampa Bay, this game was really something to watch for. Man, they've been improving a lot lately over the past couple of weeks. Tom Brady's still kind of trying to find the groove there with that, with his offense. We know Mike Evans, though, he did suffer a little bit of a scary injury there, it looked like early on. And, of course, right now he is questionable to go in the game tomorrow night against the Chicago Bears. But when you have a short week and stuff, you're going to be dealing with those nagging injuries. That will definitely put you on the questionable list for sure. But for Tom Brady, though, Mike Evans did return, though, which was good to see. But O.J. Howard, though, appears to be out for the year with a ruptured Achilles tendon. So that's a tough blow for them. But they do got Rob Gronkowski there to go at tight end. So that's a good thing for the Buccaneers. But for Tom Brady, though, this team, they've been improving since that Week 1 loss to the Saints. And I'll tell you what, this Buccaneers team, boy, for a team that really struggled over the past couple years, I know with Jameis Winston, they were hoping that was going to be their future. Unfortunately, that was not the case. We know Fitzpatrick was there. Ryan Fitzpatrick was there back in 2018 to kind of see what he could do. Eventually, things didn't work out there for him. Jameis Winston then took over as the starting quarterback once again. But eventually, though, it was time to move on, and they got lucky landing Tom Brady there. And, of course, we'll get into this later on with the Bears. Of course, that is one of our games to pick from this week. But for Tom Brady, though, this is obviously the big question going into the season. How would he strive with this Buccaneers team? Obviously, with the Patriots, we've all heard about him being, quote, a system quarterback. And now, of course, he's shown what he can do there with this receiving core. Like I said, this is the best core he's had probably since Randy Moss, Wes Welker. Boy, there was another guy too there with him, Deion Branch. Deion Branch was there as well with the Patriots. Those three wide receivers were very good together. And I'll tell you what, this is the best core Tom Brady has had since those three guys all the way back in 2009. So it's been over 10 years now since Tom Brady has had the best receiving core. But obviously right now, though, this Buccaneers team, they're looking pretty darn good right now. No doubt this division right now will either be the Saints or Tampa Bay. But Hey, I'll tell you what, though, seeing Tom Brady, though, play for the Buccaneers has been pretty exciting so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was a little bit of a rough start week
Yeah.
one. Obviously, you're playing against the Saints, and the Saints had really high expectations for the season. And I think they just played a little bit better than the Bucs. But also, you got to think about it. They had Tom Brady, who has been, a part of a team for 20 years and now is playing with, his second team in his career. So, obviously there's going to be some growing pains. But since that game, they're 3-0. So, obviously, I think we have to give a lot of credit to the GOAT, Tom Brady, throwing 5 touchdowns, 369 yards, 30 of 46 completions. I think, he played really good against the Chargers. And obviously, he did throw a pick 6 too,
He did.
which, he's done 4 in 6 games. But, those are just growing pains. But he made up for it by, obviously, like I mentioned, throwing 5 of those for touchdowns. And, he just seems to be a little more comfortable in the pocket too, watching a little bit of that game and, finding the right targets. And obviously we know what he's capable of, winning, 6 championships. So not surprising, but obviously with older age, some of that could be kind of decreased or diminished a little bit. But he really showed, against the Chargers that, he still got it. And, Ronald Jones, the second, running for 111 yards. So they can rush the ball too. They have a pretty good defense. Their defense was really pretty good last year, and it's still pretty elite this year as well. So I think this team definitely has potential to make it and win the division. I really do. I think next time that the Buccaneers and Saints play, I think the Buccaneers are going to get that matchup for sure. But then kind of going back to the Chargers, obviously Justin Herbert, like you mentioned, he is just playing phenomenally. He played pretty good against the Chiefs, just a few minutes beforehand saying, hey, you're going to get the start, kid, and he played absolutely great. Struggled a little bit against Carolina in week 3, but he kind of picked up to where he was struggling in week 4, threw for 3 touchdowns, 290 yards, 20 of 25 completion, and he had a couple of really deep balls that were very accurate too, which was surprising to me. But this team is definitely going to be a threat. If not this year, I definitely think next year for sure. They are in a kind of a tough division too, obviously with the Super Bowl champs. So, I think this is a really good stepping stone for the Chargers. They definitely found their guy. Maybe when Tyrod comes back, he gets the start. But I definitely think Justin Herbert has proved that he is the starter of this team moving forward. I would be surprised if they bench Herbert. I mean, that would just be shocking to me. I think he has earned the right to be a starter of this team at this point. But overall, really good matchup. I think it was back and forth, and the Buccaneers ended up finishing the game and winning by just a touchdown. But I think it was a good win for the Bucs. And like we mentioned, we are going to talk about the game against the Bears tomorrow night. But that should also be a pretty good game too.
Yeah, let's hope. Okay. Our last game here to discuss before we jump into one of the coaches getting fired. Browns Cowboys. This game was very boring, by the way. If you didn't see it, you didn't miss much. No, I'm just kidding. You missed a whole lot of fun if you did not see this game. Cowboys. Oh boy. Okay, if you had Dak Prescott,
Cowboys doing cowboy things.
That's true. If you had Dak Prescott, though, on your fantasy team, a.k.a. Logan Howell's dad, if he's watching, by the way, if you had Dak Prescott on your fantasy team, you were in pretty good hands with that. I'll say that. But the Cowboys themselves, though, as a team, like you said, they did cowboy things. Cleveland, though, jumped out to a huge, big lead there. Odell Beckham Jr. was all over the place. What do you have? A rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown. He did it whatever you could. Yeah. Right there. I think he even had some blocks too. No, I'm just kidding. Well, maybe he did as a receiver. Put some blocks on some defensive backs. But this Browns team, obviously, with Baker Mayfield, has been kind of taking some heat this year. Obviously, Stephen A. Smith saying he has more commercials than wins, which, I mean, hey, that honestly could be true. He's done a lot of Hulu commercials and stuff. But either way, though, for Cleveland, this is a good win for him. But towards the end, though, Dallas was trying to come back. Cleveland kind of had like what the Atlanta Falcons did, big lead, and then you start to have that collapse. But the Browns, though, they were able to prevail and come out there with the win against the Dallas Cowboys. America's team, nope, they're not America's team in my book now. I mean, they were America's team back in the day with Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, the glory days that you can say for the Cowboys. But right now, that's not the case for them. Dak Prescott, he proved that he does deserve, I guess, quite a bit of money. But when he was the $45 million a year, I'm sorry. That's just not gonna. That does not go for me. Uh, Look, I get it. Dak obviously has kind of beaten the odds, was drafted there in the fourth round. Wasn't even supposed to start his rookie season back in 2016, but then Tony Romo got hurt with the back injuries and stuff, and then Dak stepped in. He did a phenomenal job there. Zeke did a great job as well. The two rookies right there. Not too often you see a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back dominate the season, but that's what they did there back in 16. And they kind of had some struggles a little bit back and forth in 17. 18, though, got into the playoffs, mainly because Alex Smith got hurt there during his time with the Washington football team, had the severe leg injury. So Dallas was able to kind of prevail, take that into hands and win that division. Of course, with the NFC East, that division is very bad. It's very weak. The weakest division in all of football right now. Heck, you can go five. Heck, you might be able to go 5-11 and still win the division. It's probably true. But when you look at, though, a team like the Dallas Cowboys, they're just a team right now that's still trying to figure out what they need to do and stuff. Mike McCarthy, who used to coach the Green Bay Packers, came in to be the coach this year. They're still kind of having those struggles like they were last year with Jason Garrett and, of course, the years when he was there as the coach. But right now, I think for Dallas, they don't need to panic just yet because, like I said, they are in the division there where it's pretty weak. So don't need to panic just yet. But if Dak wants to get paid the big bucks, though, he has to keep on doing what he has to do. But his team needs to win too at the same time. For Cleveland, though, big win for them. I was worried that they were going to have that collapse like the Falcons usually have. But luckily, though, they didn't have that. Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham. I think Jarvis Landry even threw a passing touchdown as well, which was just phenomenal.
Yep.
So either way, for Cleveland, great win for them. Dallas, well, oh well.
Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of really good points. Obviously, we're looking at the Cowboys. The offense really isn't the problem. Obviously, Ezekiel has fumbled it a lot the last few games, which I definitely think is a problem when you're creating turnovers for your side of the ball. But besides that, Dallas is really doing a good job of scoring points. Obviously, Dak Prescott having 500 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. So he is basically, trying to get this team back into leads when the defense gives up, because obviously the defense for the Cowboys is terrible. It's awful. They can't stop anybody. So, but you got to give credit to the Browns for playing really good. Baker Mayfield had a pretty good game. He made really smart decisions, I thought. And there was some trickery too, obviously, like you mentioned, from Landry to Odell for 37 yards. Odell, we got to give him credit too. 3 touchdowns on the day, 2 receiving and 1 rushing. Obviously had that really critical rush touchdown to basically seal the game when the Cowboys were coming back. And honestly, I was thinking, oh my gosh, is this going to be in another Atlanta situation? Because that's all I could think about. It was when Dallas, did that against Atlanta. And honestly, the Cowboys should be 0-4. Like when we look back at that game,
I wish they were 0-4.
I mean, that would be nice too. But kind of going back to what you were saying about that, the NFC East being so weak. I mean, I was watching that game against the 49ers when obviously the Eagles, came back and won the game. And they ended up being in first with 1 win on the season. I mean, just thinking about that is just mind-boggling, because looking at a division like the NFC West, for example, when you have a lot of those teams like the Seahawks and the Rams and the Cardinals and the 49ers are obviously hanging in there. Obviously, the 49ers have had a lot of injuries, which is why they've kind of struggled this season. But that's still a very tough division. So. There's definitely, that is definitely the weakest division in the NFL, no doubt about it. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with that division. Don't get me started. But, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles or Cowboys are going to win that division. I definitely think it's kind of like that every year. It's, they'll maybe have a 7-9 record, 8-8 record, and make the playoffs. So it's just, I mean, those teams have to figure it out, because it's just every year, or they got to switch something up, because there's just something wrong with that division. I don't know what the heck it is, but every year it's just, you expect it to be garbage, and it is. So,
like I said, you can go 4-12 and you still get first place. It's just simple as that. I mean, no, obviously 4-12 is, no, that's probably not going to get you first place. But no, 7-9, 8-8, like you mentioned, though, for that division, that's definitely. Probably will. It probably will come down to that. Obviously, with with the Eagles, Carson Wentz. I just don't know. He's obviously been hurt throughout the past couple of seasons, so he's no doubt dealing with some injuries for sure. With the Washington football team, again, Kyle Allen, he will be starting this week for them. So Dwayne Haskins got benched, so they're trying to get something going right here for them. And for the Giants, obviously Saquon being out for the year is a huge blow to them. So they just had to kind of get through this season, get into the positive off season, and maybe they get a good draft pick there too, take advantage of that, and then land a good star wide receiver, maybe on offense, maybe a good maybe a great defensive player there as well. But we'll see what happens with that. So definitely gonna be interesting to see how those teams there in the NFC East, how they fare out the rest of the year. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, now moving on to the Houston Texans. Bill O'Brien, he's fired. Should do my best Trump impersonation right there. Probably shouldn't do that, though, especially with so many days to go till the election. Either way, Bill O'Brien has been fired by the Houston Texans. He was the coach and the GM there, so Houston obviously has 2 vacancies right now. But, of course, when you start off 0-4, and for a team like Houston, who was no doubt going to be struggling this year after trading away DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals back in the spring. And no doubt that trade is no doubt one of the most stupidest trades to ever go down, probably in NFL history. And now, of course, with Houston, you have a phenomenal quarterback there in Deshaun Watson. Still have a good, somewhat receiving core there in Will Fuller. I know Kenny Stills has been doing a decent job for him there as well. But, boy, when you trade away a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, that's just not what you need to do right there. I'm not sure whether it was a contract dispute going on there with them, or maybe they just weren't seeing eye to eye on certain things. But whatever the case may be, that was not a good trade. And with Bill O'Brien, I know last week we kind of talked about there too, coaches possibly being on the line, and now here we are with now after going into week 5, Bill O'Brien, he's no longer with the team now. And of course, he does kind of come from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Of course, after he did lead the Patriots, he went off there to Penn State to take over for the late Joe Paterno there for 2 years. And then after that, start of the 2014 season, he became the head coach of the Houston Texans. And his record-wise is not bad. He made the playoffs a few times. Was never kind of able to get over the playoff hump, though, that they were in. But, of course, as years went on, though, with Deshaun Watson, they were improving. But then, like I said, you trade away DeAndre Hopkins. That's really going to put a big hole in your offense right there. And certainly that's been showing so far this year. And now here you are with Deshaun Watson being into year 4 already. Of course, when you're a young quarterback, you want to go with an offensive-minded coach to kind of help you grow as a player. But now here he is, though, being in year 4, like I mentioned. Where does Houston go now? Do they go an offensive-minded coach or a defensive-minded coach? And we know, hey, defensive-minded coach, that may not be a bad decision. Of course, J.J. Watt and Bill O'Brien, they had a big feud going on there apparently. So, Obviously, when you're feuding with one of the big players there for Houston, J.J. Watt, no doubt he's been a phenomenal player there for Houston. Of course, the past couple of years been kind of tough for him being injured. But still, when he's healthy, that dude is such a – oh, man, he is phenomenal. I'll tell you what, at Wisconsin, he was a stud. With Houston, he's been a stud. But now here's Houston now struggling. No doubt they are. When you start 0-4, that's going to be, you're losing control of your division right now. But overall, though, with Bill O'Brien, he's now fired. He's been relieved of his duties. And now you look at other coaches, too, around the league. Adam Gase, Dan Quinn, Matt Patricia. There's a lot of coaches that this year they could be looking for jobs possibly. And I get it. Bill O'Brien, he has a good offensive mind, but I think, though, being in full control of the team was not what he needed to do, because when you get in full control of a team, you kind of get in there over your head a little bit, and that's what happened there with Bill O'Brien. I think that's why he got fired, and now here we are going into week 5. Could more coaches be on the line or fired possibly as the season carries on? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I definitely think, Bill O'Brien, the GM, got Bill O'Brien, the coach, fired. I definitely think he just made too many mistakes when it came to trading players. Obviously, the DeAndre Hopkins one is the one that everybody thinks of just the Cardinals basically getting a steal. I think as a coach, he was okay. He did what it took to win, and made it to the playoffs 4 or 5 years, which is obviously pretty good. Not a lot of coaches can do that. But I think for him, at least, in the Texans, it was just time to part ways. I really do. I think they're kind of looking forward to move on. And, I definitely think we could see Bill O'Brien, if not a head coach, maybe an assistant coach or, something like that.
Offensive coordinator, maybe.
An offensive coordinator at the NFL level, or even maybe going back to college. You never know. So I think he's still capable of coaching. Definitely don't think that's the reason why he got fired. I just think, obviously, after, they did play a really tough schedule. The first 3 games were against teams that were pretty much undefeated. Ravens, and then the Steelers, and then I can't remember who they played week 2, but it might have been the Chiefs, actually. Oh, yeah, it was Chiefs, Ravens, and then, Steelers. So, obviously, those are really tough teams, and all those teams are undefeated. Obviously, Steelers, they should have played last week, but we still don't know. But the Vikings, they definitely should have probably won that game. Yes. I think there was just too many mistakes, especially in the play calling towards the end of the game. It just didn't seem to be, there just seemed to be something off with that team. So I think it's going to be good for both sides. I really do. I think the Texans can only get better from this. Hopefully they, the thing that also sucks too is that they don't actually get any high draft picks next season too, because they traded them away. So, they're just going to have to, whoever the next GM is and whoever the next coach is are really just going to have to, start from the ground up. Obviously, you have a great quarterback in Deshaun Watson. You have a pretty good defense for the most part with some good key pieces. You just have to build off that and get better from there. But kind of like what you were going back to with all the other coaches too. I definitely think Adam Gase is probably next. I think if the Jets lose, I think he will be fired. I think Dan Quinn. I think the Falcons will probably wait until the end of the season with him. I think the defense has had a lot of injuries this year, so I definitely think they'll probably just wait to fire him unless he really turns it around and, for some reason the Falcons can make a playoff spot. And Matt Patricia, I think he's probably about 2 or 3 weeks away. Obviously things could change if these teams start to go on a roll, but if they don't, I definitely think that's going to be the time frame for those guys. But at the end of the day, I definitely think it was good for both sides for the Texans, and hopefully the Texans could be a threat next year, because this year they're just gonna, basically just blow it up at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just definitely kind of been that season for them where it was time to part ways with Bill O'Brien, and that's what they did. I think he tried to just get a solid GM there that can take over and then get a good, decent head coach there as well. And the foundation's there for Houston, that's for sure, with Deshaun Watson. Because you have a quarterback there who's still fairly young, who can still throw the football, run with the football, do all kinds of things. So I definitely think that the foundation is there, that's for sure. But overall, though, Adam Gase, he's definitely going to be looking for a job soon. I think he'll definitely be one of the coaches that will be fired next. Dan Quinn, kind of up in the air right now with him. Like you said, defensive-wise for the Falcons, injuries have been kind of going there for them. Matt Patricia, it could be a few weeks away. We'll see what happens with him. But overall, though, it's just, it's been an interesting season so far with COVID, with coaches now getting fired, teams still trying to get that first win of the season. So we'll see what happens with that. But overall, though, like I said, it's been quite an interesting season. All right, before we go to break here, like we always do, we like to pick some games here for this week. And, of course, Carter had to choose the Bucs and the Bears. Last time the Bears played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Bears won, I think, by a score of 48-10. Wow. That was back in 2018 at Soldier Field. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the score this time. Maybe it will be for the other team. We'll see what the Bears can do. Man, that was a tough loss against the Colts on Sunday. And, of course, they got to play on Thursday night, short week. That's something I hate. I oppose Thursday night football. Get rid of it, Roger Goodell. If that's something you can also do it as well with your $40 million. But Bucs, Bears, Tom Brady, like I said, he's been doing really good over the past couple of weeks. Still kind of trying to find a rhythm there with Tampa Bay. Some struggles here. But as a Bears fan, boy, I'm going to make a lot of people upset right here. I will pick Tampa Bay to win this game. Hey, Bears will still be over 500. I can say that. They'll be 3-2. They're still over 500. So that's somewhat of a positive still. But if I had to give a final score prediction for this game, I'll go 24-13 Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to give the edge to Tampa Bay. I think they're just overall a better team. Like we mentioned against the Chargers, I think the offense has it going. I think Tom Brady is in control of the offense, especially if Mike Evans is playing. I definitely think the Buccaneers are going to win, no problem. Bears, again, solid defense, have had a great defense for a few years now. The offense is the question mark, though. You know, and we saw it last week against the Colts. The offense couldn't do anything. The defense was out there a very long time, getting gassed, and you know, it's just hard to stop Phil Rivers in that offense. So, you know, I definitely think it's going to be Buccaneers, no doubt. I'm going to give the final score to be 28-13. I think, you know, Buccaneers are really going to just score a lot of points early on, and then, you know, they're going to kind of put their foot off the gas a little bit, and then they're going to, you know, finish the game with maybe a few more touchdowns. But, you know, we'll see what Nick Foles can do. Obviously, we kind of talked about it earlier. Nick Foles, last time he played Tom Brady, he won in the Super Bowl. So,
That's true.
you know, maybe there's a little bit of Foles magic once again with the new team, but we'll just have to wait and see. But excited for the game tomorrow.
But the team Nick Foles had, though, with the Eagles was pretty darn good, too.
Yeah.
The players around
Yep.
him were pretty darn good.
Yep.
No, we'll see what happens with that. Defensive-wise, they should be okay, but if they're going to keep getting out there on the field, they'll be getting gassed, so we'll see what happens with that. All right, Bills-Titans. This game is up in the air right now, but we'll still give a score prediction right here. Like we talked about there, too. Buffalo, phenomenal season so far, 4-0. Tennessee, oh, boy. Again, this game is probably – I just don't see it happening, to be honest, but I'll still give it a score prediction. Tennessee, though, currently 3-0 right now. Like, who knows what could have happened at the game against the Steelers. Could be 3-1 maybe, but right now they're still undefeated, of course. Bills, though, I'll give this one to them. I think the Bills will win this one. Like I said, Josh Allen's been doing a really good job lately. Stephon Diggs, like you said, over 100 yards, over 100 yards receiving there last week. In Tennessee, we'll see what Ryan Tannehill can do. Derrick Henry, if they play this week. So, but for this score, though, I'll give the edge to Buffalo, 27-17, Buffalo.
I'm going to give the edge to the Titans. I
Oh,
think
okay.
I think just because they've had an extra week off, I think they're going to be kind of rejuvenated, ready to go. And they haven't really lost a lot of, obviously, their big name guys so far to COVID-19. So I think that ultimately helped them in the long run when it comes to beating this game or you know, winning this game, I should say, because obviously it's going to be tough if you lose a lot of your star players. Like if Henry was out and Tannehill, I would definitely give the edge to Buffalo, no problem. But it seems like a lot of those guys, if the game does happen, will be playing on Sunday against the Bills. So I'm going to give the edge to the Titans. I think they're a pretty good team. I think they're going to really, you know, feed the ball to Henry. I think he's, you know, obviously a tremendous back in this league. And like I said, the extra rest, I think is going to benefit the Titans in the long run. So I'm going to give the edge, like I said, to the Titans. I'm going to say the final score prediction is going to be 21-17.
Okay. And for our third game here, we got the Colts and the Browns. Colts coming off a win last week against my Chicago Bears, unfortunately. Although I do like Phil Rivers. He's a good trash talker, clean trash talker, by the way. I've always admired that from him. Cleveland, though, we talked about, they had the phenomenal win last week, too, against the Dallas Cowboys. Well, phenomenal if you want to say they almost blew it. But they scored a lot of points nonetheless. They had a good offense. Defensive-wise, though, they just kind of started slacking there towards the end. But I'll probably give the edge to the Colts in this game. I think for the Colts, they're kind of now starting to kind of get into that bit of a groove now in a way. Still trying to figure out, I don't want to say their identity, but still trying to find that rhythm. I think they'll kind of carry it over here into Week 5 against Cleveland. Like I said, Philip Rivers, it's kind of odd to see him there too with a new team as well. When you've been with the organization for so many years, since 2004 with the Chargers, and now here we are in 2020. So much change has happened too with so many big name players in football. But I would give the edge though to the Colts in this game. A final score prediction here in this one, I'll go the Colts 24-20.
I'm gonna give the edge to the Browns. I think they're starting to figure things out, especially on the offensive side of things. And the fact that Odell scored 3 touchdowns last week is definitely a good sign for this Browns offense, and hopefully helps with their confidence too. So I think their defense is pretty solid. Obviously, they have Myles Garrett, a few of those other guys that really kind of just crash the running game for the most part. Seems like they're doing a pretty good job for the most part, and the offense, like I mentioned, playing really good. And you know, I definitely think this is going to be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts win, but I think just the way that the Browns have looked the last few weeks is going to give them some confidence overall in this game. And obviously, Philip Rivers is doing pretty good, limiting his turnovers. Doesn't seem like he's having too many this season, which is definitely good for that team. I'm going to say final score prediction is going to be 21-14.
All right. And for our last game we have here, we got the Minnesota Vikings and Carter's Seattle Seahawks. I'll go Vikings 50-0. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go Seattle. Well, actually, before I get my score prediction, Vikings last week getting their first win against Houston. They should have lost the game still, but that's what costed Bill O'Brien his job there. Seattle, Russell Wilson, definitely competing, trying to get the MVP award. Boy, I'm surprised. Like, I still shocked that he has not even been considered, not even won a vote at all, which just totally shocks me. But for the Seahawks, still, for Russell Wilson, this team, no doubt, has just been doing such a phenomenal job this year. I know after kind of the Legion of Boom started to kind of split apart, kind of go their own ways. Obviously, Sherman going off to the 49ers, and then Cam Chancellor, Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, all those big name players just kind of going their own separate ways. People kind of started to write the Seahawks off, and back in 2017 they did not go to the playoffs, but since then, no, they've just been able to bounce back right up, and now they're Super Bowl contenders here once again here in 2020. Boy, this game right here for the Minnesota Vikings, I'm glad you got your first win last week, but this week, though, you're not going to be able to continue it. Seahawks win this one. I'm going to go score of 41-17 Seahawks.
Wow. It's definitely a good win for the Seahawks if it happens. I definitely got the Seahawks winning this game too. I think Russell Wilson, obviously, he's been playing great. 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the season. Didn't even really play that good against Miami last week, but still played pretty. A win's a win, right? And I just thought, the pass in the end zone that was picked off, I thought that was a little bit of a question, but besides that, they looked pretty good. Russell, threw that ball pretty deep for the most part, and DK is just becoming basically their number one guy at the moment in the receiving game, and obviously having Lockett and Dorsett, and we don't even have Josh Gordon back yet too. So there's going to be a lot of threats in the next few weeks when Gordon gets reinstated and Dorsett recovers from his foot injury. So I definitely think this is going to be good for the Seahawks. And in the Vikings, I think they've just been a little bit too inconsistent. Obviously, they beat a team, but they're 0-4. So nothing too obviously crazy about that. But I definitely think you got to give the edge to the Seahawks, even without Jamal Adams on the defensive side of things. I definitely think I'm going to give the edge to the Seahawks. I'm going to go final score prediction 31-17.
All right, and there you have it. There's some game predictions right there, and certainly going to be an interesting week 5 for sure. How many more positive cases will be coming out here with this week? That's going to be really the big question.
Yeah,
right there. I think we could say not just for teams right now being affected with COVID, but other teams there as well. So we'll see what happens with that. But boy, it's certainly been it's been a fun season so far, but definitely though still a lot of concerns though to think about. Of course, when you're going into the season, that was going to be something to think about. But we'll see what happens there. We just got to carry on, and eventually, whatever happens, we can't be surprised about it. We'll have to just deal with it, and eventually, hopefully, we do get some sort of. If you get through the season, that's great. If not, then we'll see what happens with them. All right, we're going to take our first break here. When we come back, we'll dive into some NBA talk. The NBA Finals here, the Lakers already 3-1 right now. Miami looking to rebound or looking to keep their momentum going after a big Game 3 win. But the Lakers said, nope, sorry, not happening. Also some baseball news as well. The playoffs happening right now. Did Houston prevail today? We'll talk about next year with Timeout with the Guys. Be right back. Stay tuned. And welcome back to Time Out with the Guys. I am Brad Burton. He is Carter Foley. So now that here we are, Game 5 of the NBA Finals will be taking place Friday night. Hopefully we get it. Hopefully we do get a Game 6 because hey, the more games we have, the more fun it's going to be. But when you look at the NBA Finals so far, on how it's been kind of going, obviously with the Lakers having the 2-0 start. LeBron and Anthony Davis just been balling out there, which is how the Lakers, of course, got out to that 2-0 start. And then you saw in Game 3, Jimmy Butler, a triple-double, just a phenomenal game for him, 40 points in 45 minutes. But I'll tell you what, of course, I've always liked Jimmy Butler. Of course, his days there in Chicago, went to Minnesota, then to Philadelphia. Now here he is with Miami competing for an NBA championship. Game 4, though, however, the Lakers decided to say, you know what, we're going to come back here and take this one, and that's what they did there. The Heat, though, just having a bit of a slow start there, just not being able to prevail quickly right away like they did there in Game 3, and the Lakers were able just to keep on plowing through. Of course, the Heat did make it a little bit interesting there towards the end, but eventually, though, the Lakers, they did what they had to do, was to come out and win Game 4, and that's what they did on Tuesday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was definitely a must-win game for both teams. I really do truly believe that because if the Heat would have won that, it's a series at that point, and then the Heat have all the momentum, and if the Lakers win it, then they're just one win away from an NBA championship. So I definitely thought I watched the game, the whole game yesterday, and it was back and forth pretty much, and then the Lakers finally took control in the fourth quarter. AD hit a big-time three-point shot to go up by 9 points with about a minute left to go in the game, and that's pretty much when they sealed the deal right then and there against the Miami Heat. And we got to give credit to the Miami Heat. They're just a team full of dogs, really. I mean, they're just incredibly talented. Eric Spoelstra, a great head coach. Can't emphasize it enough. The Miami Heat, even if they don't win the chip this year, which again, Game 5, everyone's like, oh, Lakers in 5, Lakers 5, and that's ultimately what I think too. But I would not be surprised at all if the Miami Heat pull off a shocker and take it to Game 6. I would not be surprised at all. But yeah, you got to give credit to the Lakers though. They just played 48 minutes, and LeBron really did struggle. And AD kind of struggled in the beginning too, but we have to give credit to the Lakers bench. Without the Lakers bench, they would have lost that game, and it wouldn't have even been close. KCP had some clutch buckets in the beginning of the game and also towards the end of the game that we have to notice. Kuzma also played pretty good, had a couple of good 3-point shots in the beginning and also at the end of the game. And Dwight Howard really didn't play at all. Played a few minutes and then you never got to see him again. So, they're not really playing centers. They're really just playing AD, kind of matching up to what Bam Adebayo is capable of. Because if you really think about it, Bam and AD are pretty similar at the position. So, they kind of have them both out there. And even though AD's guarding Jimmy, or he was guarding Jimmy yesterday, which seemed to really help out a lot. And obviously, Jimmy didn't score nearly as many points yesterday as in Game 3, like you mentioned. But, I think that's smart, and that's what we have to give credit to, Frank Vogel for making those adjustments and, matching up to what the other team is doing. So just a lot of good things that the Lakers are doing. Obviously, Game 3, you got to give credit to the Heat. They came back and won it. But Game 4, Lakers fought really hard. Bench was extremely good, like I mentioned. They wouldn't have won it without him. And in Game 5, just today, the Lakers announced that they will be rocking the black Mamba jerseys in Game 5. So obviously they are undefeated in those jerseys, and those are great looking jerseys, by the way. And obviously to remember the great and late Kobe Bryant, and hopefully they can win Game 5 with those jerseys on. It truly would be special for the Laker organization and probably a lot of those guys, including LeBron, AD, a couple of those other guys, obviously Jeannie Buss and all the Laker family, Vanessa Bryant, obviously, and her children as well. So would be truly incredible for them to celebrate that, of course. But the Heat are definitely not going to go out without a fight, and that's what Kobe would want. Great competition throughout.
Oh, for sure. The Miami Heat definitely are not going to be a team that's just going to back down from this at all right now. I apologize for that if you heard that. But it definitely is going to be quite the matchup there here in Game 5, I would think. And definitely when you look back, of course, on the season for the Lakers, no doubt, the tragedy of Kobe Bryant's death has definitely been on their backs since the terrible day that it happened. And definitely to kind of go out this way, no doubt would be the biggest thing for them, to kind of be the silver lining, you could say. No doubt that the tragedy is still going to be with them throughout going into next season as well. But definitely, this is the best way to move forward, I think. And no doubt it'd be great to go out there with the championship. And no doubt Kobe is going to be smiling up there in heaven right now. Same with his daughter, Gianna, of course. But the finals, though, boy, I'll tell you what, with what it's been through so far this season, obviously we didn't know if we were going to have an NBA Finals. But here we are right now. And for the Lakers and the Miami Heat, it's always been cool to see LeBron go up against his former team. I know, of course, a lot of players right there with Miami. LeBron was not there, or he didn't play with them because they were either in college or even still in high school at that point, or maybe just getting started there in their NBA careers. But Eric Spoelstra, no doubt, he is a terrific coach. He's just been even after LeBron left, he still had D Wade and Chris Bosh there. Still was able to form a good team there, get to the playoffs for a couple years, and then kind of faded away a little bit. Kind of starting to retool the team, trying to get like a new identity there as well. And getting Jimmy Butler was a big addition for him last offseason. I should say. Hard to believe it's already been over a year now since that's happened. But still, though, that's been a big addition for them, and no doubt they've just been doing a really good job. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson doing a good job for them as well. And I'll tell you what, for them, for the Miami Heat, it's just been really cool to see them back in the NBA Finals, kind of with a whole new, like I said, identity. And we'll see what happens with that. But LeBron, no doubt, did have a struggle this past game, that's for sure. Same with AD, but AD, of course, was kind of doing the, he got better as the game carried on. And boy, Caldwell Pope, like you mentioned there too, kind of got it going there for the Lakers, scoring most of the points there early on. He was doing a really good job. 6 out of 12, 15 points, 3 out of 8 from the 3-point line. So had some struggling moments right there, but no doubt though he was the reason how the Lakers were able to get off to that big start there, and ultimately that's what happened. And for Dwight Howard, kind of odd to see him only just play 8 minutes. Like you mentioned, you're kind of wondering, has he been dealing with any injuries? But like I said, for the Lakers, they're not going with the whole center spot this year. Obviously, Marcus Morris is getting a lot of minutes there as well. Kuzma, Rajon Rondo as well. So all those guys coming off the bench getting good minutes right there. Kuzma only 19 minutes. Rondo and Morris 30 and 28. So really, it's just a lot of these bench guys. Some of them are getting more minutes than the starters. Kind of hard to believe about that. Of course, with Danny Green, it kind of goes back and forth with him. Is he going to start? Will he come off the bench? But either way, though, I think, though, for the Lakers, they got a good thing going right now. And we'll see if they can shut it out there in Game 5 on Friday night. If not, hey, Game 6, that's great. And then the best game ever, Game 7, that'd be fun to watch, too, as well. So we'll see what happens with that, but certainly it's just been a fun NBA Finals so far, despite all what's happened so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely, and just the fact that we're able to watch, postseason basketball has been honestly so enjoyable. I can't really explain it. To not have basketball for 4 months, and to not have really any sports. Not really, be able to do anything, not be able to go outside, not be able to, because there's a lot of uncertainty at that point back in March, obviously, with COVID-19. So, for them, for the NBA, obviously, I can't emphasize this enough. I feel like every show I have to emphasize it, but Adam Silver just doing an incredible job, just the fact that they were able to pull something like this off with really no problems at all. That at least the public really knows of, and I think internally, I think everything has been working out pretty good for them for the most part too. But yeah, you just have to give them credit for pulling this off, and it has felt like a finals experience. The games are intense. Obviously, the players are getting after it. They're going after it. They're celebrating, and you can just tell that the energy's there, even without the fans. And obviously, it's a little bit different than being in South Beach or being in LA, but the virtual fans kind of help out with that, and they have a PA announcer. They got Mike Breen, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, announcing the game. So it really does truly feel like, a finals experience, and that's just what it's felt like to me. So Great competition between two tough teams. Looking forward to Game 5, and hopefully the Lakers can pull it off. But, if the Heat are going to try to make it interesting and go to Game 6, definitely would not be upset at more postseason basketball. And, if they do go to Game 7, that certainly will be a really fun game to watch for sure. And, just have to give credit to the NBA for, pulling something like this off and, making it so flawless in a way. And, it's been such a great experience to watch. And, if they do have to do something like this next year too, they know it works. So hopefully everybody will be on board. We'll just kind of have to wait and see in a few months what they decide to do and what the best decision for the players and the coaches and the league is to move on for the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to be interesting to see how they kind of do what they will try to do maybe next season. Will they kind of continue with the bubble experience? I would assume they'll kind of maybe do some different locations and stuff now that they'll have more time to kind of figure things out, and maybe they will be able to, teams will be able to play back at their home arenas. Of course, fans being there in attendance, that's going to be the question, of course, at least for the first part of the season, I would say. But definitely going into next season, you're at least hoping that they'll be able to be back at their home arenas. At least that'd be a good starting point, I would say, for them. And when fans come back, they come back. Obviously, it's going to be something to watch for. I'm sure Adam Silver will gather up his team and stuff and do what they gotta do. And eventually, they'll just come up with a good plan. I think like they did this one with the bubble. Certainly, I had some questions about it. Was it going to work? Was it going to be a bit of a struggle? But, boy, since they got going with it, I was very impressed by it. Adam Silver, like we talked about, he's been the best commissioner throughout this whole thing so far. And I'm definitely excited to see how that's going to go. So, definitely excited to see what they're going to do next season, even if they're going to be in a bubble still. But, again, we'll see what happens with that. But, like I said, hey, if we get a Game 6, that's great. I love the Game 7, of course. Of course, I do want the Lakers to win. I've always been a Lakers fan since I started watching Kobe when I was a bit younger. But overall, though, definitely been an exciting NBA Finals. But, hey, the Miami Heat, you can't count them out just yet. They're going to keep on fighting. They'll do what they have to do despite being down 3-1. And, hey, we've seen a lot of 3-1 comebacks in our lifetime. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, moving on now to our last topic here. Obviously, the MLB postseason or the playoffs are now here in full swing. My Chicago Cubs, they have been knocked out of it, unfortunately. Tough scene for me, but hey, it is what it is. 2020. Hey, I'm glad I got to see them play. That's all I'm really happy about. I got to see the Cubs play this season, despite having it being a short postseason exit. So it is what it is at that point. Hopefully, next season they come back strong if they do have a full season. But right now, the playoffs, so they've been really fun to watch here so far. Obviously, of course, with the Yankees and Tampa Bay Rays, that's been a really fun series right now. Tampa Bay up 8-2 right now in their current game here in Game 3. If they do win, they'll take the series lead at 2-1. For the Astros, they almost got away there with the win against the Oakland A's, but the A's were able to prevail there in the later innings and win 9-7. I know we've pretty much we trashed Houston a lot this year. About their cheating scandal that they had back in the 2017 World Series and how we thought they didn't deserve to be here. But I still don't like Houston. I'm not big on the Astros. If they lose, good for them. They don't deserve to be here. I don't think in the postseason. I will say they got good players, but I think right now, though, we're both pulling for the A's, I would assume. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I've never really been a fan of, the Astros. Obviously, they play the same division as the Mariners. And, just the fact that, they would do something like that and, they try to act all innocent and things like that now. And like, oh, we're not cheating, but, we're still playing good. It's like, well, you guys still cheated in the past. So, for me, that really can't be forgiven. So, rooting for the A's in this series, of course, and hopefully they can pull off a couple more wins to move on. But yeah, obviously the Rays and Yankees series is a close one, like you mentioned, and definitely would be interesting if the Rays could go up 2-1 and maybe advance even further than that. But I know a lot of people have been kind of pulling for the Yankees, and we'll have to kind of wait and see what they decide to do. But still a lot of baseball to be played. left in the postseason. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
Absolutely, for sure. Definitely going to be fun to watch, and we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, of course, with the Padres and Dodgers, a lot of divisional matchups, of course, happening here. Teams within the same division playing against each other, so it really kind of just feels like that they're playing against like they are in the regular season still at this point. But I do like what MLB has done, kind of inserting that playoff bubble there for these types of series. I think that's a smart move there in order to not have teams travel from coast to coast. Because when it comes to the World Series, who knows? We could have a possible Yankees and Dodgers World Series where, of course, if we were back in the normal times where the Yankees would travel from New York to L.A., Dodgers would travel from L.A. to New York, that would definitely cause a lot of problems if they were doing it this year so far. But I like what Rob Manfred has done so far this year. I know it's kind of shocking that I'm kind of praising the commissioner of MLB because I've been really critical of him for how he's trying to change the game and how he was doing COVID this year, trying to work with it. But overall, though, I do like the bubble and stuff. I think this is a smart move for MLB to do it here in the postseason. I know kind of going back to early on when the season was getting going, probably about a few weeks into it, I remember in early to mid-August, we were starting to deal with the Phillies, Marlins having COVID cases on their team, but luckily they were able to come out of those with with not a whole lot of damage. They're able to get on with their season. The Cardinals, of course, were dealing with COVID cases there as well. But luckily, though, for MLB, they were able, like I said, to come out of it with not a whole lot of damage. It could have been a lot worse, as we all know. I know when I told you, it was definitely going to be interesting to see what they were going to do. Was the season going to be suspended? Was it going to be called off? But luckily, though, they were able to go through with it. And I'm glad they inserted this bubble and stuff to play in just a certain location. I know teams would probably rather be back at their home stadiums, playing in front of fans, of course, because it is the postseason. But right now, at this point, you just got to take with what you can and just enjoy it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of those guys have to realize that a lot of the fans are watching, but they're just watching, at their house and, maybe at bars and things like that. And obviously, yeah, it's a little bit weird, of course, but that's just what 2020 is. Like we've mentioned so many times on the show, it's just a year of the unusual. So
Absolutely.
obviously, the NBA Finals, for example, they're playing in a bubble without fans. NHL, Stanley Cup Finals, they played without fans in a bubble. So
NFL's playing without fans right now at this point.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, some teams are.
Some teams, of course, and even if they do have fans in there, it's probably only about 20% filled, if that. So. It's just been a year of the unusual. I think, like I said, the competition is there with those guys, and they're still going to go out and compete at a very high level. And I think that's what we've noticed from the the few games that we've been able to watch so far, in all the postseason games, including baseball. So, I think. It's going to be a little interesting kind of once we get into the later rounds, especially the World Series and things like that. But, I think it's going to just, I think a lot of those guys are probably used to it by now too. And, hopefully next year, they'll be able to, play in front of their home fans once again. If there's a vaccine and everything, and, they'll be ready to go. But for now, just going to have to go through the motion. And, I think a lot of those guys are just more worried about, winning games, and hopefully the fans aren't too much of an issue for them, and hopefully they're just going out there playing baseball and knowing what's on the line.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely going to be something to watch for. Hopefully fans do get back into the stadiums next year for baseball. Definitely be fun to see it. Definitely want to make a trip back to Wrigley Field and definitely to Guaranteed Rate Field to catch the Cubs and Sox play. I know definitely want to get see the Mariners play as well. Definitely going to be. Hopefully we get back to that there in the 2021. But we'll see what happens. It's been a fun postseason so far, despite my Cubs not making it. Of course, it had to happen on a Friday.
Yep.
It's great. That's just great to start off a weekend. Your team getting kicked out of the playoffs on a Friday. No, it's all good. Like I said, I'm glad I got to see him play this year, despite all what's happened so far. That's all I'm just grateful for. And again, you just got to be grateful for whatever comes your way, if it's a positive thing this year so far. So I know it's been a year of adversity. It's been a year of challenges for many people. But, hey, we're all in this together. We'll get through it one way or the other. And eventually we'll come out of this. It'll make us stronger. And eventually we'll be able to go back and cheer on for our favorite teams there in person. Can't wait for that day to come. And I think that's going to do it for us here from Time Out with the Guys. If you now If you tuned in tonight, thank you so much for watching this. I know it's been kind of a hectic night with sports, all kinds of things happening there on live TV. So thank you so much for watching this. Hope you had a good night. Once again, I am Brad Burton. He is Carter Foley. Be back here next week. Until then, take care and have a great night.